I'm Heather from Hey Booktubes, and today is my July wrap-up. I went through a major reading slump in like the next to last week of July, and somehow I still managed to bang out a bunch of books. I read 29 books. I only had one DNF, which is incredibly low for me, and so I read and we'll talk about 28 books. The first 3 books are paranormal, reverse harem, fae romances, so I'm just gonna go over those real quick. First one was Power of 5. Power of 5, number 1 by Alex Lidell. Gave this book 4 stars. It was decent. There was a lot of sexual tension. There was no sex. There's 4 elite fae warriors. The fae are bonded in like groups of 5 for like fighting or something like that. And magic has made a mistake and bound them to a human servant. This book is definitely just the beginning of the story. You really basically covered them taking her to Fairy, and you know what's coming in the next book. I haven't continued. I don't know that I will continue, but it was still decent. Next, I read Intrigues of the Solar Fae Court, which is Luminae Fae Legends number 1. Gave this book 3 stars. I have a bullied and abused human girl who turns out is actually fae growing up in the human world. She's taken to a fae college. This was a little bit of a wannabe bully romance. They weren't really mean to her, and she's their fated mate. There is an evil queen. There's also mean girls. And this is another one where this book is very much just the beginning of the story. I also have not continued with it. Next, I read Fever Fae, which was Dark Fae Kings number 1. I gave this book 3 stars. It's by Xuemei X. So this is an older sister who her parents have gone missing, and she has to come back home to take care of her siblings. She's like really mean to them. I was not really a fan of the way that she was handling everything. Her fated mates are Fae Kings, who are enemies to each other. There is an evil queen who thinks that she's going to be the fated mate to all of these kings. Also have not continued with it. Next, I have Claimed by the Beast by Izzy Slam. I gave this book 3 stars. It was very much insta-love, a little bit of dubious consent going on here. Also, age gap. It's way over the top. Basically, he sees her in the woods and decides that he's gonna keep her. Next, I read Sweatpants Season by Danielle Allen. I gave this book 4 stars. It was really good, but my main issue was the main character really held the hero accountable, and like all of her issues with him, all of the angst, all the things holding them apart was that she didn't approve of something he was involved with his friends, and it was really his friends that she had issue with. They meet in a photography class, and they're also both writers, and it was good. I just didn't like any of the conflict in the story, so that really kept me from enjoying it as much as I would have liked to. Next, I read The Vixens Lead, which is number 1 in the Kit Davenport series by Tate James. This is also a reverse harem, and I gave this 3 stars. Let me know, this is a really popular reverse harem. Let me know if this series gets better from the first book. I really enjoyed the twist. It was really mild on smut. It's about an infamous fox burglar, and she ends up getting caught, and it's the guys who catch her, and she's not quite human, and there's an evil corporation that they're trying to take down and find and figure out why she's not human. Next, I read Let Me Love You, McClain Brothers number 1 by Alexandria House. I gave this book 5 stars. This is about a rapper who leaves a really bad misogynistic first impression on our main character. Both of them are parents. They both have little girls. He treats her so well, even though he yells a lot. Like, she yells back at him and stuff. I just usually don't like that. It was fine. Just an FYI. Next, I read Go Deep, Unexpected Lovers, number 1 by Rilzy Adams. This I gave 5 stars. It was so good, so good. It was really short. It's friends to lovers, which I don't love, but this was it done right, so incredibly well. They weren't like, oh, I can't love you. What if it ruins our friendship? That was like such a minor thing. It was more like, no, we've been friends our entire lives. If this doesn't work out, we're still gonna be friends. So what happens is they are best friends, and she's an erotic author, and she's getting really bad reviews on her recent books, and she needs inspiration. So she makes one little suggestion, and they go from there. And the thing I really loved about this was they were friends. Neither one of them was like pining for the other. They were just friends, and then they kind of thought, well, we could try the suggestion, see if it helps your writing, and it developed from there, and it was amazing, and I loved it, and it was glorious, and you should read it. Next, I read Beauty and the Lumberjacks, which is Hard and Dirty, number 8 by Lee Savins, I gave this book 3 stars. I haven't read any of the others in the series. They're all standalones. So it was an insta-love reverse harem in Alaska. It was over the top. You have all these lumberjacks, and then she's running away from a motorcycle club, and it was crazy. It was crazy, and there wasn't like that great smut to redeem it. Next, I read Mating the Huntress by Talia Hibbert. I gave this 4 stars. This is a werewolf romance between a werewolf and a huntress, except the oracle said that this huntress, if she ever became a huntress, her first kill would rip out her own heart, so her mother has forbid her from hunting. She really wants to prove to her family that she's good enough to be a huntress just like the rest of them. And so she's going to kill this werewolf who she's his fated mate. This was definitely a Halloween romance, and I'm never a big fan of them fighting the mate connection, which is very much what she was doing. But besides that, loved it. Great read. Next is Because You're Mine by Contreras. I gave this 3 stars. She is a ballet dancer. Her family is part of the mafia. When she found out that, she disowned them. She falls for a really dangerous man who is obviously tied to her mafia family. I really didn't like how, because she didn't approve of what her family was doing, they were dead to her. Like, she didn't care about them, or she didn't interact with them at all. And I am just never a big fan of cutting off your family if they're not actually being abusive or harmful to you. You just don't like something about them. Next, I read Dimitri, Her Russian Protector, number 2 by Roxie Rivera. I gave this book 3 stars. It is pretty much insta-love, although they've been weighing around on each other for a few years. Heroine's brother is in a gang, and that is the main source of conflict and suspense in the story. He's a really protective alpha. You have a feisty heroine. She's a baker trying to protect her business from a guy who is buying up everything in the neighborhood to make a complex or something, and it was a little bit boring. Next, I read Queen Takes Checkmate, which is their vampire queen, number 5 by Jolie Sue Burkhart. I actually only read like the last 30% of this book. I DNF'd it a long time ago when I had binged all the books in the series and was just kind of tired of reading it. And I didn't realize I had so little left. I gave it 4 stars. I picked it up maybe a year or more after I read it before, and I just started in the middle at 30% to go and had no problem knowing what was going on. So that is just incredibly impressive in my opinion. It's a vampire reverse harem. She's the one with all of the power, so there's no abuse or anything like that. There's a lot of blood play in their sexy times and life in general, which I guess makes sense for vampires. But if you really are not into that at all, it's very prevalent. Next, I read Twice the Growl, which is number 1 in the Paranormal Dating Agency by Millie Taiden. I gave this book 4 stars. It was 2 alpha werewolves and a female human. It was a novella, and the matchmaker was a grandma, so that's fun. Next, I read Dishing Up Love by K.D. Robachonks. I gave this book 4 stars. It's about a celebrity chef who has a cooking show, and he runs into this woman in a grocery store and falls head over heels in love with her. Most of the book takes place over a 24-hour period. They're in New Orleans, so they go around and see lots of sights and eat the food. She has infertility issues, and there's a big trigger warning for not 1, but 2 surprise pregnancies with an infertility issue. So honestly, that's quite frustrating. The second pregnancy does make sense. She had had surgery to try and help with her issues, and it was successful. But I just found it annoying that she had infertility issues, would probably never be able to have children, and the 2 times in her life she had unprotected sex led to her being pregnant. So the rest of it was really good. Next, I read Sweet Dreams, which is Colorado Mountains number 2 by Kristen Ashley. I gave this 5 stars. So our main character is such a jerk. He's such a jerk. And somehow I liked him anyways, and I got all the feels from this book. I was for sure crying. So our main character, she's divorced. Her husband was cheating with her best friend for years, and none of her friends told her. She packs up and just leaves her life and moves on. And she finds this little town, and it's everything that she wanted because it's so average. Both the main characters are in their 40s. He's a single dad. There is a serial killer / rapist running around, and so there is quite a bit of suspense and some violence, so be aware of that. Next, I read Bang, a naughty novella, which is the second in the Suck, Bang, Blow series by Nikki Belair. These are smutty novellas with a mafia background. This one was so over-the-top possessive and a little bit crazy and very protective, and the girl flew off the handle over like nothing, so that was a bit annoying. Prologue is their meeting. The rest of the book, they're already married, already have a son, and this is just a little snippet of their life. It was super dramatic. There was lots of sex, and the cover is so hot. Next, I read Escape the Sea, which is Saved by Pirates #1 by G. Bailey. I gave this 3 stars. It's a reverse harem pirate romance. I skimmed some parts. It was very predictable, no smut, and it's the beginning of the story. Next is The Wrong Right Man by Aurora Rose Reynolds. This was a reread for me, and I gave it 5 stars. This is crazy, overprotective, possessive guy, but in a way that I'm like, you're crossing the line, dude, but I still like it. It's definitely a happy read. They're not going to have a lot of issues between them, and I love the setup for this. So she goes for a blind date. He's everything that she ever wanted. She takes him home. They sleep together, and she wakes up, and there's texts asking why she stood up her blind date, and she just left it with him. So turns out there's a whole bunch of different things with it. And it's a rich, powerful man and a girl who's been done wrong, but he's gonna give her all the happiness that she can handle. Next, I reread Keeping Lily by Izzy Sweet and Sean Moriarty, which is #1 in the Disciple series. I gave this book 4 stars. I don't know why I love this series. There's no good reason for me to love this series, but I completely and totally do. It's insta-love, mafia, and each one is a ridiculous setup, and it's just amazing. And the women are always like kind of fighting it, and the men are just like, nope, you're the one, and I don't really care what you say about it. I'm gonna convince you. And it's so crazy and over the top. One thing about this series is the violent scenes are super extremely violent. You might want to skip them. They're really easily skipped. Basically, every time they go in the warehouse, just wait till the scene is over. This one is the head of the mafia, and she is married to a man who owes him a lot of money. He sees a picture of her and decides to go and see if she looks like that in real life, and falls hard for her right away, and convinces the man that he's gonna pay his debt by giving him his wife and children. And he gets his ready-made family. His wife is not really on board with this, and he convinces her. It's all very exciting. Each of these books is just as ridiculous as that, and I'm here for it. Next, I read Wanting It All, Taking It All, and Having It All, which is a trilogy of novellas, which really read as one book, which is Hellfire MC 1-3 by Katie Wilde. First book I gave 5 stars, the middle book I gave 3 stars, and the last one I gave 5 stars. So he saved her from a rape a bunch of years ago, and he went to prison for it, and he is the president of a rival MC. Her dad is the president of their MC, and so even though she is now an adult, there's nothing that she can do about wanting him until her dad and he come to an agreement that they'll merge the clubs and he can have her if he wants her, and he does. There are definitely some triggers for sexual assault, and it's in the past. It's not full on rape, but it's not nice, and they do describe exactly what happens. Vixen and Jenny are meant to be together, and it was nice to see them get together. The reason why the second book I only gave 3 stars was the storyline was a little bit ridiculous, and I really didn't love what they were doing with the storyline. I really felt like almost any other direction would have been better. Okay, so what it is, right? She can't be with anybody else. She freezes up sexually. The only person that she's really been with and enjoyed has been Saxon. So there's a stupid rule in their MC that if he makes her his woman, then he has to have sex with her in front of everybody, and anybody can touch her, and she's not okay with it. He doesn't ask her to do it. He's willing to walk away from the MC for her, and she doesn't want that, so she's willing to do it for him. And they make some concessions for her, but the whole thing was just blech, you know? Didn't like it. Next I read Lethal, which is #1 in The Disciples by Cassandra Robbins. I gave this book 4 stars. It was not glamorized. It was very realistic, I thought. Look into a really large MC, and so there's a lot of things that are not nice. There's a lot of drug use, and he doesn't really care if she wants to be with him or not. Clyde/Jason is definitely a jerk, and he is willing to be manipulative in order to control her. Eve is taken as a payment for her brother's debt, and he treats her well, but I mean, definitely can be a jerk and manipulative. Also, she's only 18 and a virgin, but she's not naive at all. Next I read Hero, which was #1 in the Morgan Brothers series by Lauren Rowe. I gave this book 4 stars. I got the recommendation from Bree and Love and Words. She just did a video that is all the books of Lauren Rowe that she's read, and if you love witty banter, why you'll love this author. I'm gonna let you in on a secret. I do in fact love witty banter, and so she sucked me in. Oh my gosh, this book, the beginning of this book is so heart-wrenching. I was 2% into this book and crying. So she is a widow and he is a firefighter who has a major injury trying to rescue somebody, and she's his physical therapist, and she's a single mom, and it's them falling in love. But the whole beginning of the book is so sad. She has 3 kids, he has a huge family, and they just, you know, wrap them up in their arms and love on them, and it's sweet, it's sad, and sweet. Next I read Beautifully Cruel, which is #1 in Beautifully Cruel by J.T. Gessinger. I gave this book 5 stars. This was a mafia romance. He's the big bad wolf. She is just something he can't resist. He's been going to the diner to see her for a year, and they come to an arrangement. She actually decides not to do the arrangement, and he ends up doing it anyways. He's not necessarily cruel, and it's very alpha, very possessive. And there's a really cool twist. Next I read Let Me Hold You, McClain Brothers #2 by Alexandria House. I gave this book 4 stars. This is not my favorite trope. This is an older woman and a younger man. He's an NBA player, and she is a single mom of an adult man who controls her life, and that just got old. It got old for the guy she's dating too. Also, there is domestic abuse in this pretty heavily. It's definitely a common theme in the book, not by our hero, but there's a lot of it. Last but not least, I read The Client, which is Professionals #8 by Jessica Gaziella. I gave this book 5 stars. I originally got it as an ARC right in the middle of my reading slump and didn't end up finishing it till the very end of the month, but hey, it was glorious anyways. So this is very much a standalone romance, but you will enjoy it if you've watched Fenway's antics throughout the rest of the Professionals series. And Fenway is a billionaire, like a gabillionaire, playboy, and Wasp is a woman who gets hired by other women to break men's hearts or to teach them a lesson or to catch them in cheating so that they can get their alimony, things like that. And she's hired to break his heart, and that's what she does. I'm not a big fan of going into the relationship knowing that one person is lying to the other and has ulterior motives, and you know that they're going to fall in love and they're going to regret their motives, but it's going to be a whole thing. That doesn't last the whole book. It only lasts about half the book, if that. And also, Fenway is not the type to hold a grudge, so just know that. It's really cool. They go from Paris to Bali to Australia and back to Navasink Bank, where we get most of our books from Jessica. It was really, really good. If you liked the rest of the series, you absolutely will not be disappointed in The Client. Also, am I the only one, if you have read this book, am I the only one who saw that rock star living in mansions along the river in Navison Bank, and now hopes that we get a rockstar romance from Jessica, because I'm just saying, I hope we do. That's it. That's all the books I read in July. Ended up with a bunch of books, and I'm happy with my reading month, even though I had a major reading slump and decluttered my house like a madwoman the entire month. So still pretty impressed with my reading. If you've read these, please let me know what you thought about them. If you have recommendations for me, let me know. I'm always looking for more to read. If the book is on Kindle Unlimited, it's marked in my description. So if you're a big KU user, that research is done for you and available to you. I hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks so much for watching. Bye.